Hello and welcome to What's Next. It's the Indy NXT Road Series, and we're back in Europe, this time in Germany at the Motorsport Arena, OSCHERSLEBEN for What's Next. It's the Indy NXT Road Series. Ready to take on, I guess, an infamous track given its previous corner design to open up a lap around here, Sophie. The line, I believe, something of the tune of whoever designed this corner needs to be taken in a dark room and beaten about a head. Fortunately, on this Grand Prix configuration we're tackling here tonight, we do not have to tackle that corner of infamy, but we're here to take on the 2.2 some odd mile track in Germany, one that's seen a lot of very interesting racing over the course of history, Sophie.
Yes, that line, of course, muttered by Mr. I'm going for first, says John Cleland. Yeah, it's had a lot of different racing over the years, a lot of junior Formula in Europe races here, Jacob. And, of course, the World Touring Cars have come here, and that's where that infamous line was said by touring car driver John Cleland.
Well, here we ride with two-time reigning and defending Indy NXT Road Series champ Jarrett Corey. He'll pilot our number 2 machine this night here at OSCHERSLEBEN, and it's going to be a tricky one to navigate around here, as it's a lot of corners very quickly, tied together by some rather lengthy straightaways here. Not too unlike, say, maybe a Mid-Ohio sports car course or a like that we've seen so far this season. We'll watch Jarrett tackle this run down to the revised turn number 1 here. See, very late.
There's a little downhill just before that corner there. But yeah, it's a pretty flowing opening sector, and then it tightens up real quickly. So very complex, Jacob.
Yeah, nice and tight through the left-hander here. It's kind of a bit of a hairpin corner here. This back straightaway. Don't want to mount those exit curve rumble strips all that much if you can help it. Jarrett does a good job of that. Tackling, I believe, the corner known as triple. The triple left-hander there into this long right-hander here to a corner that is perhaps very oddly named McDonald. Don't know if that's the right or the left here. I think it might be this long right here. They'll navigate onto the back straightaway here underneath the SIG Solar Group banner that is atop the course here at the tail end of the back straightaway. Single downshift into 4th gear, left side, good power out on the exit, using as much of that track as he dares. Just a lift for the right here. Good use of the runoff there. Single downshift into the final corner, and he'll blast down the front straightaway here to get his first of 2 flying laps in. Sophie, let's see what he's got.
Yeah, 1:13.5, that's currently provisionally on pole. Jake King has the next best lap, another 13.57, and then it's going to be Giovanni Blackerby with a 14.1. So there's a pretty big gap in pace between the front row and the second.
Yeah, and kind of as we noted in our track guide for this track this week, we ran, I believe, a 1:13.9 is shown off in the guide this week. I don't recall what lap deep into that run that was, because most of those laps were somewhere in the low 14s, so not surprising to see kind of a middle-of-the-road 13 around here, given the very high skill ceiling we have here in the Indy NXT Road Series with the likes of Jarrett Corey, Jake King. Takumi Numata has yet to get a time in. He's kind of historically struggled in qualifying here. I believe last time out of Charlotte Roval started deep in that field, had to work his way slowly, and perhaps somewhat fortunate given the attrition that happened throughout that race, was able to, I believe, work his way inside the top 5 there. But here we are from OSCHERSLEBEN. Corey will round the final corner. We'll see if he'll improve on lap 2 here. Only 2 drivers in the 13-second bracket. That will be Corey and King, as Corey improves well through a 1:13.120 for the driver of the 2 for Rogue Racing. Hopefully going to keep himself at the front here. We'll see his... Looks like Jake King's concluded their run. Blackerby's concluded his run. So it's going to have to come from somebody who either doesn't have a time or deeper in the field so far, Sophie.
Yeah, and right now, one of those people who doesn't have a time is Takumi Numata, the number 1 car. Takumi has shown some pace throughout the season, as he's currently working his first lap, heads through that first chicane, and then immediately through left. Oh, he gets loose, gets a bad bounce over that curb. And he is going to kind of abandon this lap there as he's slowing down, maybe trying to get the tires back under control and then go again for the next lap, as he has got 3 minutes left in the session. That's more than enough time for him to kind of reset and refocus for the driver of the number 1 machine.
Yeah, it's something we've also taken note of here this week, is given just how tight radius a lot of these corners are, and they're all in very quick succession. We noticed that kind of stiffening up the front of the car was very beneficial. I believe the setup here this week loads in at 3-1 bars. I opted to use those because I found that, especially in a lot of these slow speed, very long corners, you're kind of dropping the front in very awkward fashions, or I guess picking it up rather, causing the car to slide in very interesting fashions. We'll see if Numata can get a improvement here on lap 2, as he currently sits 14th on the board as we ride outboard with the Cadillac livery number 1 IL-15 for Takumi. Appreciate everybody for joining us here from OSCHERSLEBEN. Bit of a different track here for viewers of the channel. I believe this would be the first time we've come to this track here on P1, so something a little bit new, and we'll be in for plenty more new yet to come this season, and we'll cover that off throughout tonight's broadcast. We got news that the Save the Freedom 100 is coming back for its 7th edition this December. I believe it's the 2nd or 3rd week of December. I can confirm the date here shortly, but that is a kind of hallmark event for the IL-15. It'll be its 2nd running in the IL-15 this coming year, as Takumi Numata will round the final corner. Let's see if he's got an improved time here, Sophie. Looks like he might. 13.479 for Numata.
Yeah, that's going to put him on the outside of the front row and move Jake King into 3rd.
And for confirmation, that Save the Freedom 100 will be run on December 16th, 2026. Further details yet to come, but good to see that event making it back once again here on the iRacing service. I believe we'll be at least playing a good part into that show later on this year.
Couple cars still out on track. We have Lilac Zier, fresh off coming, doing the same race I was doing earlier on P1 Broadcasting, the Indy Open race from Nashville. I believe she just got off her flight and is currently finishing up her final qualifying lap here, Jacob. Maybe trying to learn the course here a bit.
And a Taylor Mills driver, not unfamiliar to open wheel machinery. They had a solid run going on in the IndyCar Open Series from Nashville Super Speedway earlier on this evening. They're going to get another lap down in here in the books. I believe this is just to get some more familiar with the track, as that's their 3rd lap so far this session, as we get to the final 20 seconds of qualifying, and the bulk of the grid is set. Just a handful of cars not taking time. That's going to be Jeff Pete, Georgie Tripsick, and Michael Roslin in cars 17, 15, and 20. We'll run you through the rest of the field as qualify will come to a conclusion in just a couple moments here. And we'll get ready for drivers to take to the grid for, I believe, 18 laps here from OSCHERSLEBEN. As we wait for some competitors to hit the grid, we'll wait for the front row to complete itself.
And then we will go through our starting lineup here, Jacob. So once we see that rogue racing machine of Jarrett Corey, I believe we'll have a full grid, as there he is. So our starting lineup tonight here, Jacob, is going to be our defending 2-time champion Jarrett Corey on the pole with a 1:13.120, followed by Takumi Numata of Japan with a 1:13.479. Jake King in 3rd is just a 10th behind Numata with a 1:13.579. Giovanni Blackerby will line up in 4th, and then Franco Machini will line up 5th. John Wells, a frequent competitor here in the Indy NXT Road Series, will line up in 6th. And then Hamilton Barrero Ruiz, who has put in some strong runs, like at Imola, I believe a season or 2 ago, will line up in 7th. The Canadian David Clennon will be in 8th. Stanley Knaus will be in 9th, for the driver, according to iRacing, is hailing from Antarctica. The Argentine driver, Lucas Javier Mikhail, will be rounding up the top 10. Then another Canadian, Nick Dwornik, will line up 11th alongside Rylan Floko, also of Canada, in P12. Jason Pritzker will line up in 13th, and Kevin O'Hara will line up in 14th. Evan Bronstedt and Lilac Zier will be rounding up the next row in 15th and 16th respectively. Zachary Allen will line up 17th alongside Mauricio Acevedo in 18th. Colton Williams will line up in 19th. He is the last driver to take a time running a 1:18.411. That is 5 seconds off the pole time there, Jacob. Alongside him will be the first car to not take a time of Georgie Tripsick. Jeff Pete will be in 21st, and then Michael Roslin will be 22nd.
That'll round.
Yes, rounding out the field.
Yeah, 22 cars. I thought maybe we had 23, but looks like we'll have 11 rows of 2. Ready to tackle on the unique racing venue here at OSCHERSLEBEN. It's not going to be the only action we see yet this week. Of course, the Indy NXT Oval Series will be taking on New Hampshire Super Speedway. Nashville Super Speedway tomorrow night, following the INDYCAR Oval Series from Nashville Super Speedway. That'll take place 8:15 and 9:30 Eastern Time, respectively. And then Friday night will be AMA Grand National coverage for the trucks at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time from North Wilkesboro. Caleb Bashir, Mark Murphy for that. Saturday will be the INDYCAR iRacing Series from Nashville, 2 p.m. Eastern Time for that one. And then the Dark Horse DW12 Series kicks off their 10th season from Auto Club on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time for that. And then we'll be back Monday night for INDYCAR Open and Indy NXT Road Series action, where we'll be going from Germany to Japan as we'll take on Mobility Resort Motegi.
Yes, we have 22 IL-15s as they head now down the back straightaway into turn number 11. All behind that Porsche iRacing safety car. Look at all the dust that's being kicked up offline, Jacob. That should make passing interesting into some of these corners.
We'll just have to wait and see where those passing zones kind of crop up. I suspect the front stretch and the back stretch are going to be your best opportunities. There's obviously kind of that run up to the triple left-hander that can be used as a passing opportunity, particularly if you get a solid exit out of that long left-hand hairpin. Pace car is off. The pit exit's rather early here. Corey will get control of the field from here. He's going to turn off the final corner, head down the front straightaway. We'll see when he gets underway here from OSCHERSLEBEN, and that's now.
Yes, he launches right at the green call, and he takes out a commanding lead into turn number 1.
You see the field kind of single file out behind them as Jake King and Blackerby looks to the inside now. I believe that's going to be on Franco Machini now. They'll get single filed out on the exit of the long right-hander here. Got John Wells and Hamilton Barrera Ruiz. Oh, no, that's Machini and Wells side by side. Big lockup from one of those two, I believe.
Yes, I believe that was John Wells. It's been clean for the first couple of corners here. Some battles in the mid-pack from the likes of Nick Dwornik and a few others, but for the most part, it's been pretty settled and stable out front.
Yeah, there's Dwornik in the number 7 machine. He's currently riding along in 12th, kind of just behind the completion of the initial single file here. Jared Corey's already shot out to about half a second over Takumi Numata, and then another half second back to Jake King. We'll work our way back towards...
Wells is in the wall! Wells is in the wall! Comes off the back corner onto the back straight. He punches out of the server. Heartbreak for the driver in that yellow and blue Bilstein machine.
Yeah, and there they come through the chicane. I'm imagining this happens kind of on the long right here. So we see him kind of unload, maybe grab a little bit of the curb on the inside here, gets tracked out. That looks very weird and very delayed. Very late, long spin for Wells, and that shoots him to the inside wall. I think he just got struck out by cold tires, Sophie.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like, and that's so easy to do in this car, especially with how demanding it is driving off the rear. Typically, that's a conversation we have on the oval side, Jacob, but you never know when it can kind of crop its head up, even here on the roadside. Jared Corey is still your leader over to Takumi Numata, and Numata has Jake King just half a second behind. And we have seen at the likes of Mid-Ohio, Jacob, how difficult Takumi Numata can be to pass.
Yeah, he's been able to capitalize on good qualifying efforts by and large, obviously we've seen some struggles out of him in a number of weeks as well, but when he gets a good qualifying run, he does a good job of staying on top of things and trying to keep as much track position as he can. And he's holding on in second now, getting a solid gap between himself and Jake King, although Jarrett Corey is properly streaking away. Now just under 1 second as they exit the final corner. That'll eclipse a second as they head down the front straightaway.
And further back in the pack, Ryan Fuoco spun in the same spot as Wells, but this time doesn't go off into the inside wall, just kind of lazily loops it towards the outside of the track, gets it going again, but he is tumbled from 10th to 19th.
Yeah, it looks like there might have been an additional slide or spin for some of these cars ahead of Fuoco now, as you got Roslin and Colton Williams battling for 19th. We work our way further back up, though. It looks like the closest battle on track is actually going to be this train of cars from 12th to 15th. Evan Branstad, Kevin O'Hara, Zachary Lee, Lilac Zier, this group here, all separated by about a little over a second here between these four. So they navigate the very corner-heavy section of the track here. Ooh, big lockup for, I believe that's going to be Allen. Zier will pick up that spot and move her to 14.
Yeah, Zier showing that all that practice, maybe using those extra laps, kind of paid off for her. She gets around Allen, now setting her sights on Kevin O'Hara.
We look further up the field. It looks like the closest thing now will be between Jake King and Franco Michini. Michini's about 4/10 back. Number 3. Corey goes purple once again with a 1:13.271.
Yeah, Michini closes up there into that entry to this complex opening corner. King runs a little bit wider, but really is using that to kind of open the corner up and to get a run off the exit into this next left-hand hairpin.
Maybe a bit of a better exit for King that time. That's going to let him stretch away just a little bit here. Still inside 4/10 of a second for Michini. He's just got to kind of get enough corners put together and maybe pounce on one of these longer straightaways. So
yeah, for sure. And this is kind of one of the things about a track like OSCHERSLEBEN is that it has a lot of different lines that can work, Jacob.
Yeah, you've got a lot of space to kind of move out. Obviously, there is preferred lines through a number of those kind of slower speed corners, but you've got the likes of, say, this chicane here. There's different ways to approach that and maybe pick up some time on entry or the exit of that. You've got maybe...
Oh, Michini grabs the gravel there, and that's going to maybe hinder his progress a little bit. Jacob, sorry to interrupt.
No, certainly very tricky to get that exit right. It's so easy just to hang out a little too far on that runoff over there, grab the gravel, slow yourself down a little bit. And Michini's now almost 3/4 of a second back of Jake King as we've got those gaps up on screen. We haven't mentioned push to pass yet, and that may play a little bit of a factor later on in the going here. We'll get a look at where people are at on that now. Corey sits on 55 of the initial 65, Numata on 60, King 44, Michini 58, Louise on 61, Blackerby on 54. Then you got David Clennon, Nick Dwornik kind of sitting in that 55-plus range. Clennon has yet to hit it, as does Knaus and Pregzer. That's everybody through the top 10. The rest of pretty much everybody, barring the likes of Zachary Allen, has kept themselves from hitting that button a little too much so far.
Yeah, and some heartbreak in the back. Georgie Tripsick, the driver nominally from Ghana, just got loose out of the chicane on the backstretch heading into that final right-hander, I believe, on lap 4, and then collects Lucas Javier Mikhail, who was running very well, now finds himself in 13th, so he must have had some troubles. Currently finds himself ahead of Zachary Allen, but I don't see any damage on that Alpine-related machine, so I think it's just a tough break for Georgie Tripsick.
Yeah, unfortunate for the driver of the 15 machine. Started deep in the field, ultimately going to wind up finishing there in the 20th spot. It's kind of been a mainstay as we get to see him throughout the running of this series. Tough break for him. Looks like we might have another car falling down the order, as that's going to be Jason Pregzer with a meatball flag. Let's see what happened to him. Ooh, he's in the tire bundle there. Let's see how he gets there. So here he comes down the front straightaway. I wondered if maybe he overshot the initial corner here. Here he comes. underneath the Volkswagen banner there. Work his way into the opening complex of corners. Grabs the curb there. Big long slide, locks it up, and goes straight. And that's just, I think, a little too deep. Maybe grab too much curb all at once, carrying too much speed, Sophie.
Yeah, and it's something that's just so tempting to do if you find yourself, you know, looking for pace, just struggling to try and figure out maybe learning a new track. It's just so tempting to try and carry more speed than what you actually are capable of carrying. It's why, you know, preparation is always what I believe about racing, Jacob. Really knowing the track, knowing the car, knowing what it's going to do, and knowing where you can push and where you can't. And unfortunately, the race isn't always the best time to find out.
Yeah, and especially given some of the gravel we've seen around the course, as well as that dust we saw in the pace lap. I imagine anything offline, kind of away from where you see the bulk of the cars running, you can see it there on the long right-hander here. There's a bit of gravel kicked up on the outer edge of the track. You get out in that, it's not going to keep you in the course very easily, especially given that you can't really tell from this angle, but a lot of these flatter, long corners are banked to the outer edge, kind of like a bit of a flat oval profile, if you will, so that has a bit of a pocket you got to get into to make it quick around yourself.
For sure. We are working lap 8 now, as our leader will be crossing the line. 8 of 8 here at Motorsports Circuit OSCHERSLEBEN, and I believe, yeah, Jarrett Corey has stretched out a pretty healthy margin for himself over Takumi Numata. Jarrett Corey averaging about 0.3 a lap faster than Numata, just slowly eking out that gap. Jake King still has his mirrors full of Franco Maschini, but nowhere near as full as they used to be. He's opened up another 0.2 on Maschini, and then it's about a second between Maschini and Hamilton Barrera Ruiz in that Newman Haas Haviland Texaco car.
Yeah, there's Ruiz running along in 5th. Just behind him would be none other than Giovanni Blackerby in the 5 machine. He's kind of sporting that Josef Newgarden paint. We've seen him time and time again. He's had a rough go of things this season, particularly on the oval side. Obviously, had crashed out at South Boston. I believe had an incident last time out in New Hampshire on the opening lap as well. So, been a rough go of things for Blackerby this season. Hopefully, maybe to just get a solid run under his belt and move on to the races to come yet this season, and there are plenty of them. As mentioned before, we're heading to Motegi next week. That'll be followed up by a follow-up visit to Japan to Scuba 2000, a bit of a track known for time attack. It'll be very much who can lay down the laps and lay them down the fastest for a 28-lap event, I believe, from Scuba. And then I believe we head back to a bit more of a expected venue as Portland International Raceway will play host to the 8th round of this season, followed up by Montreal, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And then we'll have the Chicago Street Course, the Daytona Road Course under the lights, and WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca rounding out the season, Sophie. Plenty of great action left to come here in the Indy NXT Road Series as we work lap 9 of 18 here from OSCHERSLEBEN. Yeah, and I just want to give a brief shout out here to the likes of Evan Branstad. Started 15th and has found his way into the top 10. That's kind of a new name. I don't believe we've seen him, Jacob, but he is certainly having a solid run, kind of just running by himself. He's got Kevin O'Hara about a second behind, and then, of course, Stanley Canals further up the road. But just doing solid, solid consistent lap times, keeping his nose clean, and it's a pretty good run for Evan. Yeah, and I think the important thing is we look at, there's 22 cars in this field. He's the 19. He's halfway through the field here, kind of right in the middle of the pack. Maybe he's a bit newer to the service, has discovered the IL-15. Maybe wants to work their way up to IndyCar here. Getting the reps in, these technical tracks and this very tricky IL-15 are a good place to learn how to manage your throttle down on corner exit, which is something that's time and time again very, very important, especially as you work your way to more power in that IR-18. It's good to see him have a nice top 10 run going for himself here at OSCHERSLEBEN.
For sure, Jacob. Once again, Jarrett Corey is your leader, now expanding his lead to just over 3 seconds ahead of Takumi Numata. And then it's Jake King in 3rd place, with a bigger gap now to Franco Machini. Machini now is falling into the clutches of Hamilton Barrera Ruiz. Machini has fallen over a second off of Jake King, but now has Hamilton Barrera Ruiz within half a second, Jacob.
Yeah, that last time by, he was 600ths faster than Ruiz, but all it takes is a little slip up from Machini here, and Ruiz is right in the hunt for that 4th place spot here. He's still trying to hunt down Jake King.
Yeah, Ruiz runs really wide there, and that kind of cost him about a 1/10 of time. Machini also gaining on King through that opening sector, so maybe Machini has figured something out. He's got another 7 laps to kind of get there and get by.
Yeah, it's going to be a waiting game, a game of patience here. Very difficult to set up a pass around here. You've obviously got a lot of corners in the opening half of this track, and then it kind of slows down a little bit with a lengthy straightaway into a chicane, into kind of just 2 quick right-handers to conclude the lap with another long straight following up. So it's kind of the back half of this track. You're kind of going to use the front half to set up maybe a good run into the back half of the track, to set up a good pass around here. And we have yet to really see anything happen majorly in the top portion of this field as King kind of continues to streak away from Machini here, and Barrera Ruiz is trying to hunt him down as best he can, but that gap sits about half a second.
Yeah, it's really hard to make inroads here. It kind of reminds me of Mid-Ohio, like you said at the beginning of the broadcast. I found myself in one of the iRacing INDYCAR Series races, Jacob, where you can kind of make inroads. I was finding myself trying to go after the Nexus Esports driver of Alan Briteau, and I would find myself getting maybe a 10th or 2 one lap, and then I would lose a 10th or 2 the next, just because just little tiny mistakes, little tiny ways that you make change your line that really helps through some of these technical corners.
One driver we've seen kind of be faultless here through the opening stages so far would be none other than Giovanni Blackerby. We'll highlight him once again as he runs along in 6th. It's actually right on board with him as he navigates to the back straightaway here. Right on board. Number 6 Machine as he heads down the back straightaway here. You see kind of the bulk of that top 5 battle between King, Machini, and Ruiz up the road here. But here he comes through the chicane here, 4th gear, getting rolled on through, and just trying to click laps off here, I suspect, as he's got a decent gap back to David Clinton, who's about 5.5 seconds behind him here.
A thing to note here, Jacob, Jarrett Corey obviously well out in a commanding lead. He is rapidly approaching Michael Russian, who I believe is right now being lapped actually by Corey. So he was 3 seconds a lap faster than the number 20 Machine, but lap traffic is going to start possibly being a factor to some of these closer fights that we're seeing between the likes of Franco Machini and Ruiz as they come across that number 20 Machine.
Now there's Roslin entering the chicane there. You see Takumi Numata just behind him now, likely going to catch him either at the tail end of this backstretch or into the next series of corners is Numata. Then you see the 3 cars of King, Machini, and Ruiz enter the frame as they head down the back straightaway here into the final of the chicanes here. Here comes Numata.
And he just kind of tries to let Numata go. It's always a little scary when a lap car just kind of just lets off there.
Ooh.
Let's go. Oh, geez. Oh my. I'm sure Machini was a little scared there, as that definitely interfered with his ability to take the corner, and Ruiz that maybe wanting to buy Roslin a beer after that one, if they partake. Oh, and Roslin goes off the track, now mowing the grass. Roslin maybe feeling a bit intimidated, maybe a little spooked after those last couple of corners, Jacob.
Yeah, and it looks like Nick Dwarnick's gone around. See what happened to him. So here he comes into the opening corner here. Left-hander hits the curb. Right-hander hits the curb. And I think he might just grab a little too much of that second curb and go for a spin. Fortunately, the car behind him, I believe that's going to be Stanley Knaus, manages to lock it down stay on the course, but Dornick's going to lose a spot in that exchange. He falls to 9th. He'll stay ahead of Kevin O'Hara, who's about 3 seconds behind him. Going to have to see how that one shakes out for Dornick, but unfortunate for the driver of the 7 machine. Just not able to hold on, carrying all that speed in the opening chicane.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound like I was too critical of Michael Roslin there, as Ruiz goes way wide and gives up all that ground through the final corner. That's going to basically give a massive reprieve to Franco Machini there. But it's so hard as a lapped car when there's a pace gap like that to know kind of what to do and to even be predictable in some ways. I've definitely found myself in that position. Don't watch any IIS broadcast from Long Beach. So no one is faultless in that, but he did his best, and Machini thankfully now is pulled back away from Ruiz, so it's not like it interfered in the race too terribly.
I think the big thing is this track doesn't have a ton of opportunities to just let cars on through. You saw kind of the group of King, Machini, and Ruiz catch Roslin on the exit of that first right-hander, and it's a very short straight, and you kind of want the inside line on the entry to that corner, so those guys are having to maybe take a line they haven't had to run around him to try to work around him, and then that lockup kind of scares him over a bit, and that's just a tricky situation to deal with. It's not too uncommon for a number of tracks. Obviously, we potentially see it even at the likes of a Mid-Ohio, where you've got maybe just a couple straights that are really opportune to let cars on through with a pace gap that big. We're working just a handful of laps to go here. Jarrett Cory's almost stretched out to a 5-second lead over Takumi Numata. Last time by over half a second faster between the two. It looks like Zachary is taking the drop to 14.
Yeah, and Numata is actually also slower than Jake King. Jake King ran a lap time that nearly matched that of Jarrett Cory, so maybe Jake King can close in here in the closing 2-3 laps here to try and mount a challenge for that second step on the podium. But also Machini is there lurking right behind.
It's not going to be over until it's over, as they say, as King closes within a second. It's going to be a little outside of a second now as they navigate the back straightaway, but just another little mistake here or there from Numata, and King's right back into that spot to try to take it away from him.
Right, and another thing to consider here, Jacob, is that push-to-pass situation. Wonder where those drivers are all at, because might be the difference maker here at OSCHERSLEBEN.
Well, Numata sits on the most of the top 5, I believe, on 30 seconds. King and Machini are both on the button down the front straight. King's now on 17. Machini sits on 7. Ruiz on 14. Blackerby 13. Clennon 37. Knaus 22. Dwarnick 17. Kevin O'Hara, he's banked up a good bit of it. He sits on 42. Leader Jarrett Cory on 10. So a lot of varying strategies of how to implement push-to-pass usage here, and we'll see if it pays off in dividends here as Jake King, just a little outside half a second now. He might be there or become the end of this race.
Right, but we are approaching the white flag lap here. Jarrett Cory now coming out onto the back straightaway in that Rogue Racing number 2 machine. A dominant performance, kind of back to form after the likes of Daniel Falkingham and a few others have kind of maybe put on a bit stronger challenge to the throne that Jarrett would prefer.
Certainly been a rougher go of things. Obviously still managed to pick up a podium last week at Charlotte, but did not look like a trendsetter or a pacemaker in that one. But he's been the pacemaker here tonight. He's got one lap machine ahead of him, I believe, of Mauricio Ezvito ahead here. Working through the opening couple of corners here. And I think we need to watch this battle for second as Jake King is within 0.3 of a second. The push to pass goes in favor of Numata here, but if King can time the pass right, I don't think it's going to be an easy thing for Numata to do.
Right, and it's also important to keep in mind that, again, this track is just so critical to car placement. As we see King, he got twitchy on exit, but he was trying to open that corner up to kind of focus on that exit, and I think that might be what gives Numata that secure P2. But he runs wide, and that's going to let King really close up right there as they head out into that back stretch. But I believe it's going to be Numata who has it in hand, and Machini has just been forgotten So it's going to be Jarrett Corey, who has no trouble getting around Acevedo. As Jarrett Corey now is going to surround the final corner. And it's going to be Jarrett Corey winning here. Numata now comes around that final corner. He will take P2 for the Japanese driver, followed by Jake King in P3. And then Machini will be in P4. Hamilton Barrera Ruiz P5. Giovanni Blackerby a solid and respectable 6th. And then David Clennon, quiet and comfortable in 7th. Stanley Canals in 8th. A quiet run for the number 13 car. Michael Roslin is a lap down, and he has just behind him Nick Dwarnick, who might be ruining that mistake that he made earlier. Kevin O'Hara will round out your top 10, and then Evan Branstad, who we highlighted earlier, not quite able to hold on to the top 10, but will finish in 11th as he twitches across the line. Followed by Jeff Hest, or Pete, sorry, in the 17, ahead of Lilac Zier, who is coming off an oval run with Zachary Allen now in 14th.
I believe that's the last of the cars we're hunting down here. I believe Roslin's still on the course. There he is. He's slowing. I believe
he crossed the line earlier as he was a lap down, Jacob. So I am sure we will hear from our podium finishers here at OSCHERSLEBEN. But once again, a dominant win from Jarrett Corey.
We'll try to get closer in on the celebrations for Corey. There's the chopper cam. We use that one here as Jarrett's likely to burn it down here once he realizes we've got his car on the screen. And right on cue, there he goes. Let's run you through the finishing results tonight as we've got some time to kill as Jarrett kills the last remaining rubber on those Firestones here from OSCHERSLEBEN. He'll pick up the win here, 4.773 to margin back to Takumi Numata, who will finish second here tonight. Jake King rounds out the podium once again. Kind of been the same names at the top most weeks here this season, but good to see them making their runs each and every week. Franco Machini, Hamilton Barrera Ruiz round out the top 5. Giovanni Blackerby, David Clennon, Stanley Knaus, Nick Dwarnick, Kevin O'Hara, the top 10. Further on down, you've got Evan Branstad, falls just short of that top 10 run we were highlighting earlier. Jeff Pete will be 12th, Lilac Zier 13th. Zachary Allen will be the last car on the lead lap in 14th, and you got Mauricio Esvido in 15th, Michael Roslin in 16th, Lucas Mikal in 17th, Colton Williams, Jason Pregser, Georgie Tripsick, all out of the race. Joining them will be, I believe, Rylan Fuoco and John Wells in 21st and 22nd, respectively, all due to incidents throughout tonight's event. And I'm sure we'll get to talk to a number of the podium finishers here, Sophie, as it was quite a long and enduring race, tackling the very tricky track here in OSCHERSLEBEN.
For sure, Jacob. I believe we have Jake King, our third place finisher, waiting in the interview room here, Jacob. So let's bring him up here.
Yeah, there's his IL-15 up on the screen. Started third, stayed there all night long. There he is.
Jake King.
You got us?
Loud and clear.
Well, you're back up on the podium once again. Solid third place run for you. It looked like you might have had a shot at Takumi in the closing stages here, falling up just a little bit short here. Walk us through maybe some of the things you learned here around the very tricky track here in OSCHERSLEBEN.
Yeah, just a very technical track. And I mean, we say it week in and week out in this series. You really got to mind your ears, especially at this place. Some super technical acceleration zones, almost turning for the whole lap. You don't really have much of a time to rest on a lap here. But yeah, the third place, no net gain or loss, but it doesn't really tell the whole story. As we saw, we got close to Takumi at the end. Just got a little overzealous in the middle sector and picked up a slowdown.
Yeah, and that's kind of something we didn't really touch on tonight, is the ability to catch one of those slowdowns, particularly in that first of the two major chicanes around here, and kind of talk us through the boundaries and the confines around here. Obviously, you've got some very high-speed, high-commitment braking zones, particularly into turn number 1, and then a lot of very slow-radius corners here. Seems like an exercise in patience just as much as it is trying to power on down around here. Was there maybe some things you learned over the course of this race, maybe adjustments in the car, your driving style, etc., to maybe get a little bit extra out of the Firestones here from OSCHERSLEBEN?
I mean, the main thing I learned was just the limits of your throttle application, especially in these technical acceleration zones. You had to be super patient to pick up full throttle, especially on the exit of turn two and that long right hander before you go into that first pretty quick chicane where I picked up the slowdown. But yeah, just patience and learning the limitations of this thing on power, as well as the trail braking. There's a lot of trail braking zones on this track. So just picking up little things here and there. Didn't really mess with the brake bias or anything too much. Just wanted to drive the car the way it was. But yeah, there's that first quick chicane. It's very borderline whether or not you're going to get a slowdown or not, because you can take a big chunk out of that turf section in that left kink before the right on the exit of that chicane. Kind of shot myself in the foot in the beginning of the race, picked up one, and then on the last lap when I was right on Takumi's tail.
Certainly not an uncommon thing to do around here. We saw a number of cars maybe grab gravel on exits of runoff areas. It's a tight confine, and it's even tighter when you're trying to hustle 450 horsepower behind the IL-15. Sophie, you got anything for Jake tonight?
Well, Jake, obviously you touched on the lack of grip. Was there anything you could do with your line or maybe your steering inputs to kind of maybe mitigate some of that sliding we were seeing from a lot of different cars here tonight?
Yeah, you kind of had to widen up your line in these kind of long, tedious corners. Uh, the fast the fast corners you could kind of drive the same as you would on fresh tires, but almost had to like diamond it off like you would an oval track towards the end, just so you could get that momentum on the exit. Kind of have to throw away the middle part, carry in the entry speed, diamond it off, and then carry out your exit speed, and try to straight line that exit as much as you could.
Well, you endured and held your ground throughout this race here tonight, Jake. Started third, finished third, kept it on the track. Solid run for you. You know the drill. Friends, family, sponsors. Anybody like to shout out? Floor is yours.
Yeah, to shout out my brother, my dad, always watching. Triple T Cutting Tools, Cindy Parker over at Homestead Realty, and Turf Trade. A couple guys I want to shout out tonight. And as always, thank you guys for another broadcast. Look forward to seeing you guys next week.
As we will you as we head over to Japan next week for Mobility Resort Motegi, which will be quite an interesting one to tackle. We'll see you there, Jake.
Thanks, guys.
That'll do it for Mr. King once again, and we'll have tonight's winner, Jarrett Curry, on the air as he picks up another dominant win here in Indy NXT Road Series competition. Jarrett, Jacob Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting, you got us?
Yep.
Well, another race of pure domination from you. It looked like you were on rails more or less throughout the night. It doesn't look like there was any major incidents for you, aside from maybe catching lap cars at inopportune times. Walk us through maybe some of the things you figured out here from OSCHERSLEBEN. Obviously, this is a track you and I are both decently familiar with the likes of the USF 2000 taken here a couple seasons ago.
Yeah, sort of what I learned in practice was like you can use there's like a bit of astroturf like on the exit of a lot of these corners, I think, or like green pavement. I don't know what it's called, but um it basically for whatever reason, either maybe there's like a drop off or like the curbs or maybe there's some bumps, but it would spin you out if you're like too aggressive when you hit it. Because it kept happening to me in practice whenever I try to like maybe push harder to find it maybe a few more tenths, like it would just kill me. Like it would snap and then you're fishtailing into a wall somewhere. So sort of what I learned was to just be sort of patient with the car and just like careful with it. Like you can still take those curbs and open up the track and exit a bit more, but you don't want to hit it with like too much wheel in it and too much throttle. So that's sort of what I learned, and that just helped me be like consistent throughout the race. Apart from that, I mean, I just used like the pace I had. That I mean, clearly I have something around here because I won the USF here, and it seems like it's a decent track for me. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I mean, that it feels like a sort of return to like how things were like season one because it's been a while since I've won a race of that much of a gap at the end. Maybe the Nürburgring GP, but that didn't feel as much as though I had just more pace than everyone else, but it was more so Leafy making a mistake. This was like the first time in a while I felt like I truly like pulled away from people like on pace. in this series in the broadcast. So it feels good.
And it certainly looked like you had learned a lot over the course of just practice and time being here at this track. And can you maybe touch on some of the things that ultimately lead to these tight confines? Obviously, there's a lot of high commitment braking zones. We kind of talked with Jake King about this as well. Is that you've got these high commitment braking zones, a lot of very long corners that you have to be patient through. So maybe some things you're doing in the kind of the mental department to keep yourself focused through a lot of these very fast at you corners through the opening portion of this track.
Yeah, it's just knowing to wait. And especially a lot of this track's got I think free pretty long radius hairpins, and there's some of those where you don't need to be hugging the inside of them the whole way around the corner. I think turn 2 more so than any of the others, but turn 3 I can sort of bring it out maybe a little bit away from the inside curb, because that seems to like to spin you if you touch it, and then maybe going a little wide in the middle of turn 7 to sort of maybe V the corner off more, if you will. But I mean, it's just being consistent lap over lap, because I found it was just hard to do that in practice. And I seem to nail it. I mean, turn 8, 9, and 10 were another one where it was if you enter it too aggressively, the car will just lose the back end. So it's just being patient with the car.
And patience is a virtue, as we all know. Sophie, you got anything for Jarrett tonight?
Well, Jarrett, obviously, you seem to have the pace well in hand, kind of already kind of going over your driving. What were you kind of telling yourself, just so that manage the gap, not make any unnecessary risks? Was at any point you were worried when you were kind of catching some of that lap traffic at all?
Slightly, because I know lap traffic can be unpredictable, but at the same time, I knew I had that gap built up. So, it's much easier to manage traffic when you have that gap, because there's no pressure to have to do anything aggressively to get by them. So I caught that car in sort of, I think, turn 3, exiting turn 3, and then he didn't let me go into turn 4, and I wasn't really close enough to do anything. So it's okay, I'm just gonna wait, and if he lets me go, he lets me go. Otherwise, I'm just gonna wait for the back straight, because that's where my opportunity is. But at the same time, I know not to get I don't want to be too close to him, in case he makes a mistake. So I was fully ready for if he spins out, I was ready to avoid that, basically. Sort of going on to that last lap. So yeah, it's tough managing lap cars. I figured they might be a problem given this didn't split. They weren't too bad. I think I only really caught them due to incident. So um, yeah, but it's always a little scary when you're the leader, but it makes it easier when you have that gap.
Certainly always good to have some things to fall back on when you get to rough going of things late in races, but you pick up another win here, Jarrett. You know the drill. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody like to shout out? Floor is yours.
Yep, Rogue Racing, P1 Broadcasting for seeing you to broadcast. Yep, that's all I've got.
Well, thanks for joining us once again, Jarrett. I know you've been iffy on running Motegi next week, but we'll catch you out whenever we see you next.
Yep, they'll probably be Nashville tomorrow, so I'll see you there.
Sounds like a plan. We'll see you there. Have a good one.
Yep, you too.
That'll do it for Mr. Corey here from OSCHERSLEBEN. We'll throw up Takumi Numata on the screen as we kind of close out the show tonight. He finishes second here. Another solid run for the driver from Japan. And Sophie, we had ourselves another dominant Jarrett Corey performance, but still plenty of action throughout the field that kept us on our toes, particularly once that lap traffic came through the field.
Yeah, particularly a lot of battles throughout the race, a lot of them kind of defined by mistakes as well. We saw a lot of cars kind of mowing the grass, a lot of cars kind of making mistakes that resulted in their nights ending as well. Very tricky track, slippery surface, and ultimately the cream rose to the top, and that cream apparently is Jarrett Corey. Not my best metaphor, Jacob.
We'll workshop that one. We've got plenty of time left this season to get another good one in there, potentially at the behalf of Jarrett Corey. Well, thank everybody for joining us tonight here from OSCHERSLEBEN. We'll hopefully catch everybody out next week as we head to Japan at Motegi, some home soil for Takumi Numata. Maybe we can put on a show for the hometown virtual fans for him, but we're closing it here from Germany for round number 5. Have a good night, everybody. We'll thank those that do all the difficult jobs all around the world to make it possible for us to bring you the likes of the Indy NXT Road Series here on P1 Broadcasting. and we will catch you next time, wherever that may be. Have a good night, everybody.